This is a moron, doesn't know what a qira'at is, right?
Yeah.
Let me explain it.
Are there textual
Now,
differences?
Let me explain it, bro.
There are textual differences.
Listen.
Textual differences. It's been corrupted.
So you can't listen. This is a problem with him. You can't listen, right? Now, when you look at the Torah, are there different verses? Are there different lines? And I have a whole book on the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Standard Torah and the differences between them. So it is not just that they're different recitations. Now his father, for example, he recites in Shu'bah and Asim, and somebody else will recite in Hafs and Asim. Those are all in accordance to one Mus'haf, the Uthmani Mus'haf. You don't know that, right? Miskeen, right? But the Torah has actual, from the Dead Sea Scrolls and the other scriptures, actual verses, chapters that have differences, and there are entire books written on that. That means there were rabbis who wrote things in that are not in other scriptures of the Torah. From their hands, they added to it, and that's why there's discussions on what should. Even the Catholic Old Testament has different numbers of verses and books than the Christian one. In the Quran, find me one Muslim in the entire world that does not agree that the Quran begins with Al-Fatiha and with Surah An-Nas. Find me one. One. I didn't think so.
Hang on.
Go ahead, think.
Ubay ibn Ka'b? You heard of
Ubay
him?
ibn Ka'b radiallahu anhu did not believe that Surah Fatiha ends in Surah Nas?
He didn't have two extra surahs in his Quran?
No!
Ibn Masud didn't have 111 chapters in his Quran?
No! Miskeen!
Ubay ibn Ka'b didn't say Ubay ibn Ka'b didn't say that there are over 200 verses missing from Surah 33?
Not at all. Let me explain this. Let me
He didn't have extra words?
He did not. Let me
He did not have extra words.
Can I explain it now?
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Okay,
even Yusuf Ali's commentary admits it.
Yusuf Ali was an Ismaili, as I told you.
Yeah, Yusuf Ali is just lying about what's in.
Okay, let me
what's
explain
in the Kirat
Get
of
the book.
Ubay ibn Ka'b.
Listen. Sir, if you want to learn. This is why you didn't come here to learn, because you're not trying to learn, you're just trying to argue.
Yeah, you keep saying false stuff. Quit saying false things, and I won't have to respond.
Al-Itqan of a Suyuti, and he has an entire chapter that discusses in these differences. What he explained about Ubay ibn Ka'b radiyallahu are those ayat that were revealed and then put in different surahs. It's not that they were disappeared. Ibn Mas'ud, let me finish before you go to Yusuf Ali. And Yusuf Ali again was Ismaili, we don't accept his commentary. He even denied the Hur al-Ain, so I mean we're not going to go there, right? But now when we go to the Yusuf Ali, I said that in the beginning. When you first pulled that out, I told you Yusuf Ali, he's Ismaili. I told you that in the beginning.
I know you hate all these other groups. It doesn't mean I can't get information from them. Why should I trust you over them?
Evidence. Okay? Now, a Suyuti, which is a standard for Itqan, he says about Ibn Mas'ud, it is not that he didn't have Qul A'udhu bil-Falaq, Qul A'udhu bin-Nas, but he took them as adhkar originally until he was reminded. And that's why when Zayd ibn Thabit, you know who Zayd ibn Thabit is?
Yeah.
You know who he is?
About the Quran.
When he compiled it, was there any khilaf or was there ijma'? Ijma'. Consensus of all of the Sahaba that this is the Quran as revealed from Al-Fatiha to Nas. Zayd ibn Thabit radiyallahu anhu in the time of Abu Bakr and again in the time of Uthman. This is the ignorance that he doesn't know. He did not. Zayd ibn Thabit left off the Quran. What's wrong with you?
He didn't find.
What is wrong with you?
Zayd ibn Thabit didn't when he did the Uthmani recension. He didn't find a couple verses that were missing.
No.
Okay.
Where did you get
That's
that from?
Interesting.
Yourself?
You didn't find the two verses from.
Listen. Zayd ibn Thabit radiyallahu, when he compiled the Quran in the time of Abu Bakr radiyallahu and re-standardized the prints to send out, they were the same. This is why the Sahaba came to an ijma'. You know what the word ijma' means? Consensus. I mean, no Sahabi disagreed when this was sent out. Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu knew Qul A'udhu bil-Falaq, Qul A'udhu bin-Nas. He led them in salah with them. There are ahadith where Ibn Mas'ud recites them in salah. But what he was explaining was he took them to be adhkar originally until he was reminded. And that's why when Zayd ibn Thabit compiled the Quran, he didn't just do it from his own. He collected all of the Huffaz and all of the Sahaba until they came to a consensus. And that's why today, I ask you, David Wood, find me one Muslim that does not believe that the Surah Al-Fatiha to Surah An-Nas is Quran.
You're talking about after all the variants and so on are burned.
Uthman
had to burn them all.
Uthman did not burn variances. This is again your ignorance. So let me explain. No.
The reason for compiling them and burning them was because there were differences in the recitation of the Quran.
There are if all the recitations go to the Mus'haf of Uthman, then how could those differences have been gone? No, let me finish with you now. When Uthman radiyallahu anh collected the Quran, people had small scripts. And what he wanted to do was to make sure that people don't start to take those scripts and misunderstand and join them in wrong places as they're not in a book format. So he compiled it.
Said differences in the recitation of the Quran.
No, again, the differences of Qur'an continue on the Mus'haf Uthman. Even today, every Qur'an has, you know the three conditions of the Qur'an?
One second, just let me read this so I can put it down. So this is commentary on the verse, Surah 33, verse 6. The Prophet is closer to the believers than their own selves, and his wives are their mothers. He says, in spiritual relationships, the Prophet is entailed to more respect and consideration than blood relations. In some qiras, like that of Ubay ibn Ka'b, occur also the words, and he is a father of them, which imply his spiritual relationship and connection with the words, and his wives are their mothers. So in his qira,
so he
in
says,
his qira,
no, wait,
he had extra words.
hold on. Now, this is your ignorance again. Bring me the ayah. David Wood's going to get done another time now.
Yeah, because
you're
Ubay,
ignorant.
because Ubay ibn Ka'b screwed up.
Because you didn't understand the hadith. That's the problem.
Okay. There you go, right there. That's the note. That's
Excellent.
the verse.
So the note is
For some strange reason,
7-4.
For some strange reason, Ubay ibn Ka'b had extra words in his.
He did not have extra words. Hold on, I'm showing you. I'm showing you, right? وكان الله بما يعملون بصير. والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ولي للمؤمنين من أنفسهم وأزواجهم وأمهاتهم. Here, in this recitation of Ubay ibn Ka'b, which again this is one of the shadh recitations, meaning this is not established from the mutawatir ahadith, which you don't know anything about, but what can I do? Here, the word is pronounced differently. It's not an additional word, which changes its meaning from their own wives, from their own selves and wives, to rather their own fathers. But this is first off, this recitation,
And he is a father to them.
right. Again, so like here, how he is closer to them in the recitation, the word changes the meaning of it. Not that there is an additional word, right? Like the word.
He said, occur also the words.
Let me explain it to you again, and you like get it on, and you can read it. But the thing is, you don't really want to learn. The word walid and walida, for example, right? And for just the change in recitation changes the meaning. Both of them being correct. Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu anhu, this qira'at is not established mutawatir. Every qira'at has to be mutawatir from a Nabi alayhi salam. But even here, it was not the additional word, but the difference in recitation that gave the depth in meaning. Now, these recitations, as Asyuti has mentioned, that are shadh. That means that they are not accepted, because even in recitation, we have to make sure they're mutawatir, that they are through numerous authentic chains. Those that are through authentic numerous chains, they do not have additional words, because they all have to go back to one Mus'haf. Mus'haf Uthman radiallahu. Any recitation that may be attributed to anybody that does not go back to the Mus'haf of Uthman is rejected. Sorry, Dave.
So if Muhammad's other companions
again
had different recitations, because that's
you're not getting.
That's
right?
even in Bukhari.
So,
Umar said, Ubay was the best of the reciters among us, but we leave off some of what he recited.
Excellent.
They're leaving it off.
Excellent. What does that hadith talk about?
Let me guess, different pronunciations or something.
No. So Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu anhu had his style of recitation that would elongate things the Quraysh did not want to elongate. See, so this is the thing. You're ignorant
This
of what's
is amazing.
going
We're
on,
sitting
right?
here reading. There are passages you can read. This is Ubay ibn Ka'b, who said that over 200 verses are missing just from Surah 33.
Again,
He's got extra words.
The problem
He's got extra
is,
words here.
The problem
and everything
is
will be reinterpreted as, nope, it was exactly the same.
It's not interpretation.
He just
it's context.
elongated the word.
If you had understood the context,
and we're not elongating it. That's what Umar is saying.
Do this. Go get the book Al-Itqan and read it for yourself, so you can look at historic evidences. The problem is you don't really want to know the answer. We study these sciences. That's why we have the answer. You don't study them and make ignorant attempts to make videos, and that's why when I correct you, you're like, oh, how come you always have the answer? Because we study this Quran.
I would like your answer on this, and I'm not even objecting.
Can we end? I told you this is like almost
I actually want this.
And he told me one more thing half an hour ago.
Sahih Muslim.
This is your last thing then?
Sahih Muslim.
Last thing?
Sahih Muslim 2286.
Okay.
That's where Abu Musa, it says Abu Musa went to the reciters of Basra, and he said, be careful that you're reciting the Quran for a long time doesn't harden your hearts, as were hardened the hearts of those who came before you. And then he says basically they forgot 2 chapters of the Quran.
2286.
You're using Dar es Salaam.
Which one do you want me to use? Show me the hadith I can.
Wait, it's Sunnah.com gives.
I just want to look at the wording of the hadith that you're saying. Because you misunderstood every hadith till now, so I'm assuming you misunderstood this as well.
You don't know what hadith I'm talking about?
Nope. And not until you show
I
me.
think the one I saw them, the interview was 2 stars he got. So he didn't answer. He actually didn't answer like good questions.
All this way from New York just to get destroyed again. Miskeen. Ring it. Oh, can't find it.
No.
You were throwing the number
This has
out
a
like
different.
you
This
wouldn't
has a
believe,
different numbering system.
right? Then which one were you looking at?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Ah.
What are you laughing? You're using.
I'm just giggling because my
Okay,
time
here
to
we go,
go
here we go.
an hour ago.
Okay, here we go.
There we go. All right, there we go. So what is the hadith number here?
I like black.
You see the 2286? That's in the old
I
verse.
disagree
Yeah.
with them because
So, you are the best amongst the inhabitants of Basra, for you are the reciters amongst them, so continue to recite it. Continue to recite it. That your reciting for a long time may not harden your hearts, so they were hardened, as were the hardened of the hearts of those before you. We used to recite a surah which resembled in length and severity, surah in severity, Surah Al-Bara, which is Tawbah. I have, however, forgotten it, with the exception of which I remember out of it. If there were 2 valleys full of riches of the son of Adam, he would long for a 3rd valley, and nothing would fill their stomachs of the son of Adam except dust. And we used to recite a surah which resembled one of the surahs of Mushabbiyat, and I have forgotten it. But remember this much of it. What's your point?
This is Abu Musa.
Abu Musa al-Ash'ari.
He goes to the reciters. He goes to the reciters of Basra.
Okay.
Right? And he says, hey, just be careful that you reciting the Quran for a long time doesn't harden your heart. Like you get bored with it or something, you get sick of it or something, right?
No. You don't understand. This is the thing. You're ignorant, right?
Reading words off a page.
No, and not understing them apparently. Okay? So you're reciting for a long time. May not harden your heart. As were hardened of those before you. So he's telling them, continue to recite,
Obviously.
so that your reciting does not harden your heart.
Right. And he says, as were hardened the hearts of those before you.
Right? By not reciting.
The earlier generation.
Exactly.
Right? By not reciting, right?
Hold on.
Then he quotes,
let me explain.
and then he says, there was a chapter of the Quran
Surah Tawbah.
in length and severity, like Surah At-Tawbah. So there's a chapter as long as and hard as Surah At-Tawbah.
Okay.
Right? But I have forgotten it.
Sure.
Right? But he gives a verse out of it. If there were 2 valleys of riches for the son of Adam, they would want a 3rd.
Miskeen.
And so he's telling
Let me explain it to you. You
this
good?
is Abu Musa saying they forgot 2 chapters.
This is your ignorance again, right?
What chapter is that?
Let me explain it to you what chapter. That is not a chapter at all. That's actually a hadith.
That's a hadith.
That's a hadith. So let me explain this to you.
So he didn't know.
You waiting? You ready? You okay? Take a breath, bro. This is your last one, but I'm gonna kill it with this one. So, when we look at the Sahaba radiyallahu who were the memorizers of the Quran, those that came together with Zayd ibn Thabit, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari is not one of them. Did you know that? They've caught again.
Then the chapter should still be there.
Let me explain. As if you had studied Ilm al-Rijal, which you didn't, then you would have known that some of the Sahaba to the later type of their age, they had issues with memory. Right? And that is why Uthman ibn Affan, may Allah reward him, what he had done before this time, before Abu Musa al-Ashari went to Basra, before he became old, that Uthman radiallahu anhu took the Qurra, the Zayd ibn Thabit, ibn Mas'ud, ibn Ka'b, from Uthman radiallahu anhu himself, and he standardized the Quran. So if somebody, as a person, starts to forget or mix up things, it would not affect the Quran. We know that Abu Musa al-Ashari radiallahu anhu, towards the later time of his life, had issues with remembering things and confusing things. But that would never affect the Quran, because the Quran was standardized and preserved by Uthman radiallahu anhu in book format and by ijma of the Sahaba in the early time, before the time when Uthman radiallahu anhu, Ali radiallahu anhu, and Abu Musa al-Ashari went to Basra. So a person himself, like for example, if I memorize the Quran, and when I get old, I come to this young man, I say, keep reciting the Quran so that your hearts don't become hardened, because I have forgotten many of the ayat of Quran and I recite them incorrectly, it will not affect the preserved, compiled Quran by ijma of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu.
He gives a
That's
verse.
it. That's
He
it.
gives a verse out of it though.
He does not. This is a hadith. That's the whole
That's a
point.
hadith.
Imam al-Nawawi, in his Sharh Sahih Muslim,
Uh-huh.
he explained that this is actually a hadith, and Abu Musa al-Ashari, because of his old age, was confused. But the Quran, alhamdulillah, was preserved before that time by the consensus of the Sahaba. There are Sahaba who memorized the Quran and forgot parts of it. Like today, there are those who memorize the Quran. But it never affected the preservation of the Quran, because the Qurra, and he is not from them, the Qurra were the precise memorizers who wrote down the entire Quran during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. And that's why Zayd ibn Thabit, when he collected it, he told them to bring from the writing and memory, and only accepting 2 witnesses per ayah, compiled the Quran, standardized, sent out by ijma' of Sahaba, so anybody's personal memory would never affect the Quran after that. Walhamdulillah. It's 6 o'clock, I'm out.
I mean,
You're gonna want to keep going because you know you got destroyed repeatedly.
Oh,
but I got a
I
light.
find it interesting, very interesting, because I've seen that interpretation that you quoted. It's a hadith, and I've seen like 9 different explanations
Talk to your
to
camera,
explain that
because you know
away.
you can't talk to us.
I'm talking to you.
Yeah, it's 6 o'clock.
I'm talking to you. I've noticed. It doesn't seem there's a consensus on what that means.
and by the way, I've
No, there's no
already blamed you
consensus,
for my
right?
life when I'm late.
The consensus on the Quran's preservation has been documented in Al-Itqan. Go look at it.
Yeah, the consensus. I'm right here. The consensus on the Quran's preservation now, even though you do have the different kirat and so on, but you go back, different numbers of chapters. You have passages talking about entire chapters coming up missing. You have, according to Aisha, over 100 verses of Surah 33 coming up missing. According to Ubay ibn Ka'b, more than 200 verses missing from Surah 33. Ibn Umar warned people. Ibn Umar warned people. He said, let none of you say, I've memorized the entire Quran. For how does he know what the whole of it is when so much has disappeared? And the response to all of that is, there's a consensus. There's a consensus. We know there's a consensus now, but it doesn't line up with reality.